Canadian market. My name is Carolina Garces. I am a senior project manager at OpenTech, one of the partners at SMEBeyond. And I'm thrilled to moderate today's session. Before starting, please be aware that this session will be recorded. So if you don't want to be featured, we suggest you to turn off your camera. Tomorrow morning, we will be sending the presentation and the recorded video about this session. I also want to warmly invite you all to the webinar about how to enter the US market that will take place right after this webinar. So today at 3 o'clock, and my colleagues are now sharing the information so you can connect to the event. So what do we have as agenda for today? Let me change my slide. As global trade landscape shift, particularly with increasing uncertainty about US and EU relations and tariff tensions, Canada could emerge as a highly strategic and stable getaway for European companies. So in today's session, we will explore how to enter the Canadian market efficiently, how to build the right partnerships locally, what current EU and Canada collaboration opportunities exist. And finally, we will hear directly from a European company expanding successfully in Canada. So we will open the floor after each presentation. So please raise your hand or use the chat function if you have a question. But before we get started with the presentation, I would like to introduce you to Liza, the project manager, the project coordinator of SMEBeyond, who will tell you shortly about the project. Liza.
Yes, I think some of you might remember my face from the previous webinar. So my name is Lais Valença. I'm a project manager here at the Clean, the Danish cluster for water and environment. We are the lead partner for SMEBeyond, which is a project focused on helping small and medium companies to explore new markets abroad in the South Baltic region, because it's funded by the Interreg South Baltic, but also at EU level and non-EU level. So today's webinar is, as Carolina said, is mentioned, it's focused both on the US and Canada, because these are two markets that have been marketed as relevant by the companies in the South Baltic region. So the project activities not only will focus not on those webinars, we're also going to have matchmaking sessions, delegations, cross-border collaborations, and development of tools to support internalizations for the SMEs in the region.
Great, thank you so much, Liz. And now let's start then with the webinar. We are pleased to welcome Christina Keiren, Country Manager for Canada at Business Sweden, who will share key market entry strategies, legal considerations, and how European companies can position themselves for success in Canada Innovations Forward economy. Christina, you can share your presentation, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. And I am hoping to share my screen there. Yes, can you see my presentation?
We can see it.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much, Carolina. Thank you for having me and my colleague Samira to present to your audience. And just a short introduction on Business Sweden. We are a trade promotion agency. Progress by Trade is our tag name, and we help Swedish companies grow global sales and international companies to invest and expand in Sweden. And we have an office in over 50 countries. We have one office in Canada, in Toronto, and there are 7 of us there. And we focus on a few different sectors that are very close to Sweden: energy, transport, industrial and materials, digital technologies, and consumer goods. So that was a little bit about us. But in today's presentation, I will focus on the opportunities for European companies and the trade between EU and Canada. So if we start with why Canada, and a little bit of a background information on Canada, you might You might be familiar with Canada, but if you're not, this is a little short reminder. Canada is the second largest country in the world by landmass. It has 10 provinces and 3 territories, and it's is spanning over 6 time zones. So a very large country, divided in all these provinces and territories that are very independent and have their own government. You might be familiar that Canada has a lot of forests, a lot of lakes, very, very similar to the Scandinavian landscape. It has 2 official languages, English and French, and it is the province of Quebec, where the French language is very strong, is the dominant language, and they have very strong regulations and laws that the French language should be the dominant language. Capital is in Ottawa, in Ontario. One thing that you might not be familiar with is that Canada has the most educated population in the world. That is due to a lot of students that are coming to Canada to study at the universities, and also domestic education growth. About 40 million people live in Canada, and it is, as I said, large in size compared to Sweden. When we talk to companies on why they should choose Canada, we often talk about 6 reasons, and we're mentioning them here on the slide. One is, of course, the free trade agreement, and we will talk a little bit more about that later. But there is a free trade agreement, CETA, between Canada and EU, and the biggest news about the free trade agreement was that when it was implemented in 2017, is 98% of pre-existing tariffs were removed. Canada and EU are very culturally similar, both business, social cultures, the climate, and natural resources. Canada is also very strong in funding R&D hubs. So there's tax incentives for companies, both in Canada and in international companies that would like to focus on R&D development. And Swedish companies have taken advantage of that. Companies like Ericsson, ABB, AstraZeneca all have their global R&D center in Canada. And as I mentioned before, Canada has the most educated population, which means that Canada has a very good talent pool. And this is very attractive for foreign direct investment, where you can find a lot of educated people in the workforce, and much needed when it comes to R&D and manufacturing. It is also a very political stable government. I will talk a little bit more about the upcoming election. Now, the one reason we have sort of put a little warning sign on here is the gateway to the US market. We always talk about Canada being a stepping stone to the US market historically. But in the past 3 months, this has been putting a pause on that reason for natural reasons, of course, with the looming tariffs that the Trump administration has implemented. So there is a very strong trade relationship between Canada and US, but it is being challenged at the moment. So in terms of trade between the EU and Canada, the EU is actually Canada's second largest trading partner after the US. But as you can see, the US is by far the closest trading partner with Canada. As a matter of fact, almost 80% of Canadian exports goes to US. And this, of course, has been challenged now with the tariffs, and Canada is very much looking to expand their trade relationship with EU. But we have seen an increased both import and export since the CETA agreement was signed. As I said before, it was signed in 2017, with most of the European nations signing that. And when it comes to products and services from EU to Canada, we have actually seen a 64% increase. So that is very positive news. I think we need to mention the sort of elephant in the room, and that is the challenge right now with the trade between US and the world, really. But if we go back a little bit, there is always been a free trade agreement between Canada, US, and Mexico. It was called NAFTA before, and then it was changed in 2018. It was renegotiated and is now called CUSMA if you're in Canada, USMCA if you are in US. But there is a free trade agreement, basically. However, right now, US are enforcing tariffs, 25% on most goods from Canada, 10 or 25% for EU goods. But as you probably know, this has been put on a pause at the moment for EU, 90 days. And in Canada's case, they have put an exempt on all the goods and services that falls under the existing free trade agreement, CUSMA. So I know there's lots of figures here, 25%, 10%. We don't really know where it will land, and the next few months will be very interesting to see where it will land. But I think the most important here fact is that there are no tariffs between EU and Canada. That is still zero, and both Canada and EU are very much keen to do more trade. So it will stay at zero. In Canada, we right now have an upcoming election on next week, April 28. The Liberal government has been in power for 10 years under Justin Trudeau's leadership. He stepped down earlier this year, and Mark Carney became the leader for the Liberal Party and therefore the Prime Minister. But he has decided to do a quick election, and that is happening right now next week. And if you asked me 3 months ago, I would say that the Conservative was going to have a landslide victory. All the polls suggested that the Conservative will be in power in after the next election. But since Mark Carney came on, that has now shifted, and the Liberal Party is actually still in the lead. So that remains to be seen who will be the Prime Minister. Most likely Mark Carney, but we don't really know. Mark Carney has been very open to fight against the tariffs from the Trump administration. And I would say that this is a really crucial moment in time where Canada and EU are coming together more than ever before. They're two like-minded partners, and this is going to change, I think, the trade relationship that Canada has with other nations. As I mentioned before, Canada exports almost 80% of their services and products to US, and Canada has realized that they need to diversify and find other trading partners. Carney had said that Canada is the most European of non-European countries, and I think that quote is a good sentiment of how Canadians feel like right now. They do want to get closer to Europe, and vice versa. Ursula von der Leyen has said the same thing. just a short introduction here on the regulatory landscape in Canada. As I mentioned before, it is a large country. We have a federal government led by Mark Carney, but the provinces are very, very independent. They have their own government, and they decide on a lot of things on their own. So we always, when we talk to companies that would like to enter Canada, it's very much where in Canada is a good starting point, because laws and regulations can change and be different in New Brunswick or British Columbia. So it's very important to understand the different provinces. So they hold authority on a lot of the governments. And then we have an additional layer, and that's the municipal government. And they decide on issues around the city, as zoning, land use, building codes, waste management, and so forth. And another part that is very important in Canada is the Indigenous government. And that has the rights of the Indigenous people and the community has really, really grown in the past 10 years. And it is, the government has put a lot of emphasis on the Indigenous community to make sure that they are part of any decisions, especially when it comes to natural resources, forestry, mining, and so forth. Yes, I think I'll stop there and ask if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Christina. Yes, please raise your hand or write your questions on the chat. It was very interesting presentation. In the meanwhile, Christina, I would like to know, how does Canada trade relationships with Europe via this free trade agreement offer a unique advantage compared to, for example, the US?
Mm-hmm.
Apart
yes, like
from
I
the
said,
tariffs, of course.
Yeah, I mean, this we have seen a grown trade between Canada and EU since the implementation, but it was, over 7 years ago and almost 8 years ago. So I think we can see even bigger growth going forward. Canada is very open to work with the European countries even closer. When Carney became prime minister, the first trip he made was to France and UK. Traditionally, he or she would always go to the US because of the close relationship. But that just shows that there is a shift and an outreach from Canada to be closer to EU. But keep in mind that because of the closeness to the US, Canada and US will always be close trading partners. And I think that there will be a lot of negotiations going forward. It's extremely integrated and especially when it comes to the automotive industry. So I think, it is going to be an interesting year to see where we land in 6 months.
Are there specific sectors that Canada is looking for innovations in Europe, for example?
Mm-hmm. I think what Canada really needs to do is they have a lot of forest, they have a lot of energy, oil and gas, they have a lot of resources, but what they really need to grow in is value added products. So any technology that are using the natural resources and actually making products instead of just exporting it, raw material, that is where the opportunities are.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Christina. Then we go to the next part of this session and we welcome Samira Negeri. She's also part of Business Sweden, and you will talk about the strategies for finding business partners in Canada. Welcome, Samira.
Yes, thank you very much. Very nice to be here today. So I want to just kind of pick up a little bit where Christina left off, and she provided a really good understanding of the landscape in Canada to do business, which is really key to understanding how to really operate in Canada if you're looking to enter as a foreign company. So we wanted to make sure that that part was understood moving into looking at strategies in terms of actually doing business within Canada as well. So Christina touched on a little bit of this, and it builds off a little bit of the last question there, but I wanted to start off just by providing a bit of an overview of some of the key sectors we see a lot of activity in Canada, and as a result, a lot of opportunity for European companies when they're looking to do business here. So Canada is a global leader in sustainability and innovation in a lot of large sectors. This especially includes natural resources, heavy industries, manufacturing. So as Christina touched on before as well, forestry is a big area in Canada. We have up to 10% of the world's forests here in Canada, the third largest forest mass in the world. So as a result, we have a lot of these natural resources that get utilized in downstream industries as well. So a lot of forest product exports. So this is a major industry in Canada, but also an industry where there's opportunity to continue moving forward to find new ways to utilize these resources. And that's something we see Europe doing a lot more of than Canada, and an area that Canada looks to Europe for inspiration in terms of how to kind of grow the value add element of the bioeconomy and utilizing our forestry and resources. Mining is also a very major sector here in Canada. We have over 200 mines, over 6,500 quarries, over 50% of the world's mining companies are located here, and we have all of the minerals required for battery electric value chains. So very important sector to Canada, and one where we see a lot of opportunity for continued investment and growth, and have seen historically as well. Advanced manufacturing digital technologies are also very key areas. From an advanced manufacturing perspective, we have a very large and advanced automotive manufacturing sector here in Canada, especially in Ontario. We have strong automation and a lot of innovation in this space, and a lot of utilization of advanced technology in different sectors like steel manufacturing and automotive manufacturing as well. Digital technology, we're the largest tech cluster in North America after the Silicon Valley, here in Toronto, I believe, and Montreal. We also have quite an AI hub. So a lot of technology growing here, and this is a space we also see a lot of activity from different companies who are able to invest and partner with different companies here in Canada to access our kind of larger end user markets and industries here. So we see a lot of opportunity and continued activity in these particular sectors, as well as quite a few others and some subsectors here. But if we move into the next section, we can talk a little bit more about the strategy behind kind of engaging some of these opportunities we see, and particularly around finding a partner. So I'll caveat here that what you heard from Christina, and something that I'll kind of emphasize quite a bit here, is that Canada is a very large country, and there's a lot of differences between the provinces and between the industries and where they operate and what they focus on. So as a result, it's very difficult to blanket statements saying, this is a good approach to finding partners, because it really becomes a question of where are you really digging in and who are you looking for. So when we approach supporting companies, because this is really something that we do quite often in finding partners in Canada, it comes down to kind of making sure that there's an understanding of this landscape, so that it's a very efficient and effective approach to finding these partners in the Canadian market. So the kind of formula we use here is looking at the where, the who, and the how. So starting at that first point of the where, it's really about honing in on, what industry you're looking at and where regionally and provincially you want to focus at. So from an industry perspective, if you're looking for a partner, and this can differ between, distributors, strategic partners, customers that are also operating from a partner perspective, we see a lot of companies can come in sometimes wanting to target a lot of different partners or different industries in different areas, because their solution can be applicable in a lot of spaces. But because of the size and kind of fragmentation we see in the Canadian industries in general, this tends to be a much more difficult approach. So we always recommend honing in on, 1 to 3 key industries where you see potential and diving in there. And that leads to the second point here. And Christina touched on this a little bit on that province slide, but you'll see that in Canada, the variances between the provinces very much is drives like an industry focus. So you'll see specific industries have significant portions of their activities in one province, and that drives a lot of the regulatory landscape, a lot of the cultural decisions, etc. So when it comes to doing business in Canada, you're never really doing business in Canada. You're typically doing business within the province that you're choosing or starting with, and then you can kind of add more provinces on there. But it's really important to be looking at it from the landscape of, you know, I'm doing business in Ontario, in Quebec, in British Columbia. That's how the provinces focus on their industries, and so that's how you'll end up finding a lot more success in engaging and understanding the landscape. At the end of the day, there are a lot of different regulatory differences and market differences when it comes to the provinces. So this is really important to understanding what kind of resources you'll have access to, what kind of barriers you might meet that you might not expect. So for example, Quebec is an easy one where the French language ends up creating a lot of differences in terms of, you know, packaging rules, laws of employment, how you actually end up incorporating in the province will shift quite a bit. I'd say at a very high level, industry agnostic, you tend to see a lot of the variances in Quebec and Alberta that are the kind of biggest outliers from the rest of the country. But in general, each province will look different. So for example, if you're looking at forestry, it's important to understand, you know, forestry is big in British Columbia, New Brunswick, and Ontario, and Quebec. And then if you're looking at what does the regulatory landscape look like, well, then you might find it interesting to know that in forestry, forests are crown owned in Canada, owned by the government predominantly everywhere except for New Brunswick, where you see a lot of the private land ownership. So these are the kind of things that differ from provinces and make it really important to understand which provinces are interesting for you and might create more opportunities or have more barriers that you'll need to navigate if you're doing business there. It's also important to know what region or province you're focused on, because a lot of the organizations that could provide support are typically provincially based and sometimes even city based. So for example, the trade organizations or invest organizations, you'll see, you know, Invest Ontario or Investissement Quebec, Invest Alberta, they focus on their province and supporting and attracting trade and investment into their province in particular. So once you know the province you're working on, you know who to engage to support in those activities as well. And then at the city level, you'll see, you know, Montreal International or Invest Ottawa, Toronto Global. So you'll see the same, again, variances there. So step one is really knowing what province or industry you want to focus on and letting that drive, you know, where is the activity and opportunity for you provincially. And then from that perspective, once you know the province, what do you need to understand that differs from a regulatory perspective, from a market perspective, that can impact your approach to doing business in that area and also finding the right partner. And so that moves into that kind of who's category. And when you're looking to find the right partner, it's really important tip that we always provide is to say, you know, map out that stakeholder universe. So understand who is involved in the relevant value chain for your solution in Canada. We find because it tends to be quite fragmented, depending again on the industry here, these groups can be, you know, plentiful, but they can also differ quite a bit from what you're used to in your home market. So it can be very important to understand who is playing a role, what role do they play, and how could that support your entry. And that also is something that can be supported by leveraging industry associations or hubs or incubators that are relevant to that industry in your province to understand where they play a role. And then that moves into kind of defining your criteria. So again, one that seems a little bit more obvious, but sometimes we see companies come in saying, you know, I want to target the biggest players, those with the biggest market share. And of course, sometimes that is the right move, but we find it very important to really piece together what your ideal criteria is. You know, what are the must-haves, the cannot-haves at all, and, you know, nice-to-haves, but not necessarily crucial when it comes to working with a potential partner, so that you can really target your efforts effectively. Sometimes we see a lot of the time in Canada that industries are structured where there's, you know, a few really large players and then a very large pool of, you know, medium and smaller players. And sometimes that large pool can be, you know, overlooked in favor of those big players, but those big players are also the ones everyone else is targeting. So sometimes the opportunity is really in that second category, where what we also see is that Canadians like to see a proven solution. So sometimes your way in is being able to kind of get a use case, a partnership with someone who's a bit smaller, but can give you that first step into the market, and then you can kind of scale your way up if it is the biggest players that you're looking at. But it's really effective to understand, you know, what it is you're looking for very specifically, so that you can target that in when there's so many different players that are available both in that province and nationally. And then when it comes to kind of the how, so how do you actually engage those players once you've identified who it is your ideal partner, you know, what role do they play and how do you want to work with them? It's really important to tailor your pitch to your audience. Again, another one that seems self-explanatory, but in the Canadian context, we see it's very important to show very clearly what your value proposition is for that audience, because there's so many different stakeholder groups. Being able to say, you know, this is what we can offer you specifically, and this is how we know that, having the facts and figures, the numbers that can back up your claims. You know, if you're saying you're more efficient, being able to say by how much and how you know that goes a long way to actually kind of getting through and advancing dialogues with partners in the Canadian market. And so when you're engaging strategically, it's important to realize as well that while Canada is a very big country, our industries operate quite often as, you know, a small world. So everyone knows everyone, even if it is BC to Ontario. So, you know, being on the ground, shaking hands, being at industry events, it goes a long way to building the trust that Canadians want to see to actually do business with you. So we always recommend, you know, taking those opportunities to be here and show your face and kind of get your name around. At the end of the day, a lot of the time, dialogues can last quite a long time here in Canada. So, you know, you might have to have a few meetings. It might go over a few months. We can be quite a bit more hierarchical. So there might be a few more stages where it's, you know, the conversation is escalating to different decision makers. So it's important to be patient there, but it does pay off in the end. Canadians are quite open once you kind of find that champion and get the conversation going. But we always kind of want to caveat that it can be a little bit of a longer process that requires a little bit more conversation. But I'll pause there, and of course, happy to answer questions on that more specifically. But at a higher level, and less from a strategic standpoint, when you're doing business in Canada, we've summarized a few of the key points here to keep in mind. So, you know, I've stressed this quite a bit, but Canada is big and diverse, a lot of different cultural variances from province to province, as well as some nuances that might not seem obvious. So it's just important to remember that, especially in provinces, you know, like Quebec, where there's more concrete differences. You know, from a respect and timing perspective, you know, Canadians, we are, again, back to that diversity point, we're a very inclusive culture. We respect different opinions, different levels, different people, no matter kind of what their identity is. And again, yeah, at that point, we're not necessarily the fastest at making decisions. So some patience is required in those dialogues. And this third point is probably the most important that it's ever been in today's landscape. But the difference between Canada and the US, Canadians would like that distinction, you know, to be very clear that Canadians are not the same as Americans. There are a lot of similarities in the way that our markets can operate in some ways, and some different cultural elements, but there are a lot of distinctions between these markets and how our consumers think, how our industries operate, how our people think. So it's very important to understand that difference, you know, that Canadians are not the same as Americans. We use a kind of mix between the metric and imperial systems, which can be a little bit confusing for people. You know, we will tell temperature in Celsius, but weight in pounds. You know, we tell distances in kilometers, but height in feet and inches. So it kind of varies a little bit between the European and the American way. And then, as mentioned, Canada is a very bilingual country. It's a nationally official bilingual country, English and French. But you'll see French being spoken very predominantly in Quebec, and then different pockets in Ontario and the East Coast, I'd say. So it's important to understand what role the language plays in that market as you operate there. And then I think the last slide just covers a little bit of the high-level differences that we see when it comes to Sweden and Canada. Of course, we work predominantly with Swedish companies, so this is just an example that we have of, you know, how you see the typical Swede versus the typical Canadian, just as some tips in terms of things you might notice that are a little bit different from the way that you approach business in your countries as well. But Canada tends to be a little bit more formal when it comes to the dress code. That's changed a little bit, I would say, throughout the pandemic, but still a little bit more formal than what we see on the Swedish side. Again, I mentioned a little bit, we're a hierarchical organization, so very career oriented, you know, titles mean a little bit more, have a bit more emphasis in the business world. We are very much social creatures in Canada. You know, we'll chat a lot with colleagues, a lot of small talk and socialization and business dialogues as well. And that's, you know, it's not uncommon for someone to start up a conversation with you at a bus stop or in line at a coffee shop, etc. So that's something that can be a little bit surprising sometimes to other visitors. And you know the cultural stereotypes on Canada hold true a little bit there. We're quite polite and we say sorry quite a bit. But something we see that we have in common with the Swedes, for example, is that we all love to talk about the weather and hockey, so it makes for great icebreakers when you're doing business in Canada, any of those topics. Yeah, I'll pause there and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Samira. Wow, it was so much information. I think, and you have responded a lot of questions already. I will open the floor to the audience if you have some questions to Samira. I will. Otherwise, you can use the chat. Otherwise, I think I will go to the next speaker because we are just right on time to the next speaker. Thank you so much, Samira, and I think everybody would like to go through your presentation again. Now, our next speaker brings deep expertise in Europe and Canada collaborations within low carbon innovation and circular economy sectors. So please welcome Anastasia Konstantinova. You are a principal consultant at Technopolis, and we want to hear the specific opportunities that exist right now for European companies in Canada. Welcome, Anastasia.
Thank you so much, Carolina, and welcome everyone. It was a great introduction now by Christina and Simera. I think it perfectly matches. And Carolina, thanks for organizing and inviting us to speak here. Indeed, I'm here from Technopolis Group, working on a range of topics, but specifically for low carbon business action project. I'm one of the big team that is behind managing and bringing companies from Europe to Canada to make it a business win-win for all. And I see here also two other colleagues. So it's Jose Canjura and Boland Kalum, who are also from ICF, and they are coordinating this project from Canadian side. So they're sitting here in Vancouver. And after the presentation, I'll also give them a couple of words to add from how is it managing the project of this scale from Canada. So I'm here in Amsterdam, managing more the side of European companies. What is the low carbon business action project is about? It's actually a second phase of the project that has started several years ago. And with the invitation from Jose, we joined as partners in this project because we know more on what is happening in Europe, and it's also good to have someone representing in Europe from this side. So you can get familiarized with the project on the webpage, and there's soon to be a B2B platform where the companies can be matched together. So what the project is looking for, it is a bilateral cooperation action funded by European Union to support the reduction of greenhouse gases emissions and move towards a more cleaner circular economy. But what it actually facilitates along what I'm more speaking today is how you can use the opportunities to enter the Canadian market from European side, but at the same time to show that Canadian market is also very much interested to explore those opportunities from European side. And rightly pointed already, Christina and Simera, the Canada is very huge. So it's important to know where do you want to go, with who you want to go, and how. And I think this is exactly a great project and a platform that can help you, along with many other efforts that I've done on European and Canadian side, to steer the companies toward effective and collaborative cooperation and business profits for both European and the Canadian companies. And what the project has already achieved over the past years is they have managed, it's one of the examples of many numbers that the project can show, is 53 partnerships has been generated through the project, which resulted in a value of around 211 million. And then overall, over the past years, there was 100 pitches by EU innovating companies, resulting in over 100 technical meetings. So as you see, the project is the part of the project is very hands-on activities that support this matchmaking between the companies. So what we can how does the project actually help? For the European companies, it can provide market intelligence, also what has been mentioned about different regulatory issues. It also supports a really tailored matchmaking, because together with you, Carolina, we were identifying who are possible the companies on the European side that are interested really to go, and then we also look together with those companies for the Canadian buyers who's interested in your solutions. And the same, we have a huge team on the Canadian side that also did the same with market assessment analysis, where exactly those needs in different areas. But also the same is being done of course on the Canadian side. What is the particular focus of companies that the project is looking at the European side? This is small, medium enterprises that can offer innovative solutions to really tackle those reduction of the low carbon emissions and stimulate more circular economy solutions. These are the companies that are 500 employees and less and have an annual turnover that is not more than 300 million euros. Ranges from all the member states, 27 member states of the European Union, and have majority corporate ownership by EU nationals, and exactly offers those solutions. And this is done in three phases. First, we do the shortlisting of the companies, really understand, is the company really ready for going to Canada? Is the company interested? So that both on the European side, but also Canadian side, we reduce the efficiency of just talking and exploring, but rather already specifically looking into, is there a solution really addresses the needed topics? Is there a solution that has a potential to find a buyer in Canada? Then when the Canadian companies review also those solutions, they can identify 2-3 companies that would like to hear. Then there's a pitch event where they present their solutions, and then this leads to a more business agreement where they start technically cooperate between each other and see how they can use the technology from European side, and whether the buyer from the Canadian, how they can use the solution on the European side. There are 4 sectors that have been prioritized, which are now we are looking for companies who would be interested to present their innovative solutions. This is a critical raw material sector, in housing, then also related to aquaculture systems and vertical farming, and of course generating more clean tech components. But overall, there's many more other sectors where the innovative solutions from European companies could be explored to also reduce the CO2 emissions. That's, for example, these are the sectors which are listed here on the slide. It's agriculture, building, also electricity, heavy industries, oil and gas, transportation, and forest products. And also, as we've seen from Simera's presentation, for example, mining and forestry is one of really big markets in Canada. So that's a perfect synergy, I think, that have been just presented by representatives from Swedish Trade and Investment Council before. To round it up, give you a small flare of how housing, for example, if you see that there's opportunity in housing sector, it already has been prepared from our experts on Canadian side. So where exactly this, for example, what is the context, why it's exactly needed, what is the problems that the Canadian buyers are facing, what are technical solutions they're looking, and then what are the opportunities for the Canadian market. So that is all are also broken up by different sectors. And if I'm correct, and then Jose, I'll pass the word to Jose. There's going to be a market assessment published very soon, where you can also get familiarized with which sectors exactly and what are the needs of the Canadian buyers, and then reach to us through the platform. Register on the platform, or just reach to me, to Jose or Raghu, who's a deputy director of the project, and through this start the conversation on your exploring and opening the Canadian market for your innovative solutions. So thank you so much, Carolina. And this with this word, I'll pass to Jose to add several additional final remarks.
Okay, 1 minute, Jose, because we are running late with time, but please add in the chat your contact information, because I'm pretty sure people want to hear about it. Jose.
Sure. I'll be very quick, and thank you very much, Anastasia, for that introduction. Really, it is challenging to cover all of the information and all of the support that LCBA Canada can offer in such a short presentation. I really encourage everybody to get in contact with us, either with Anastasia or with myself. My contact information in the chat, but just a few key takeaways to provide further information to what Anastasia said. We are a matchmaking facility. We are here to support and to create and support partnerships and opportunities to collaborate between European companies and Canadian companies. And we've been doing this since 2020, and we're active for 3 more years. So there are several more opportunities ahead. Some key takeaways is that we provide opportunities to connect with different types of buyers or companies in Canada. This is very important because this means that we can provide access to either large Canadian corporates, Canadian SMEs, municipalities, and importantly, as it was mentioned by Christina before, to Indigenous communities, which are an important and different profile that the Canadian market offers to European companies. We have an excellent relationship with Indigenous communities in Canada. We have found them to be excellent adopters of European innovation, and we can provide entry points to collaborate with these types of communities. Another thing that is important to mention is that not only do we create matches, but we support those matches to achieve commercialization. The LCBA Canada project provides technical assistance at no cost to successful matches and to facilitate that commercialization. So we work with the matches to identify specific entry points for technical assistance, and we deliver that technical assistance as well. I think that's all the time I have. Really, there's a lot more we can say. So really, we encourage everybody to get in touch with us, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Jose. And I want to highlight one more time, this is a European initiative, so it's free of charge. So please get in contact with Anastasia and Jose so they can support you. We go to the next speaker. We are moving to the real world company story. We are thrilled to welcome Agnesia. If you can share your presentation. She is CEO of Worldwide Scale. And you will be sharing about how has been your experience navigating the Canadian market as an entrepreneur. Welcome, Agnesia.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you, Carolina, for having us here today. It's a real pleasure to share with you some experience we've got from Canada. Just a short description about us, if I may ask for the next slide, please. Yeah, we are Worldwide Scale Up Incorporation. We incorporated in Calgary, but operating mainly into provinces in Manitoba, which wasn't mentioned today, and is very interesting because of the biotechnology sector and agri-technology sector.
and in Calgary, that is focused on energy. That was already mentioned today. And the goal for today is to show you a little bit from the practice how some of European companies behave in Canadian market. And I will also try to show you a little bit what kind of strategy can be taken by you. So next slide, please. So there are several models you can choose from, and the right one really depends on what you are looking for. So it comes down to your goal, your product, your IP strategy, and how much you really to commit it. Some of you may go direct or indirect exporting, and according to me, it's one of the easiest and most effective way to get started. Other may focus on licensing or subcontracting, especially if your value lies in intellectual property. Of course, strategic alliances are very crucial here. And the last one seems to be the most difficult, I would say, and required a really legal support here, especially when we are talking about merging and acquisition. So the choice depends on your resources, on your risk appetite, on which level you are, IP position, which is crucial here entering the market, and of course, your vision in your future. So what strategy you created for your company. Next slide, please. So Canada, as it was already mentioned, is really open. We welcome every innovative idea. Even if you're foreign, you may establish a company here. You do not have any residency or citizenship. However, you have to be aware that you cannot even you own the company. You are a shareholder. You cannot just start working here. And it's not something like the obstacle. I would just say it's just the awareness you have to have in order to perform activities and to act legally. As it was already mentioned today, Canada is very, or maybe people in Canada are very trustworthy people and very open. And what's important, that trust has to be built from the beginning. That's why I mentioned that we should be aware about some legal obstacles to work with. So when you typically need working in Canada, you typically need a valid work permit. However, there are some ways to receive it. There are business visitors permit, or depending on what you want to do. There are also the worker permit if you need it. Some scenarios might qualify you for a work permit exception. And it is something that was already mentioned about CETA. CETA is not only about taxation, about payment. CETA is also about working. And we're very fortunate to have that document because it helps easier for business owners to enter Canada temporarily to conduct business. Thanks to that, you can, for example, attend meetings or even negotiate contract for a longer time. So there is also a transfer within a company via ICT from European-based present company to Canadian affiliate. And you can also provide services across border without needing a LMIA. LMIA is a labor market impact assessment. And in many cases, you do not have to obtain that in order to perform activities here in Canada. So again, it is not about barriers, but it's about knowing which tool to use to make your entry faster, smoother, and compliant. There are a lot of programs you have to attend in and receive the visa or any other permission you need to perform your action. So also one important thing is taxation, because running a business in two continents, or not, in this case, two continents, is to avoid double taxation. So it's also very important to know how to face with that. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. So today I will try to show you in two examples how the companies worked in two markets. This one is with strong IP, and they've received already EU grants. They built success in Europe. They were founded in 2021 in Poland in the sector of nanotechnology and advanced materials. It's a small company that employed today around 20 employees. And their business model, as I've said, is based on IP. So for them, important was to license. Next slide, please. So for them, we decided to incorporate in 2024 in Calgary, because this province was dedicated most for them. And then the strategy is to go to Manitoba as a bio province. And then we will think what to do next, having success in those two provinces. It was in the past also mentioned that we would go through US, but knowing what is going on today, this is under the consideration. So they are starting from one employee, so not to have a huge expenses at the beginning. And their strategy is to license and sub-license, and also sign the distribution agreement. And as the third part is R&D sector and infrastructure, where they can run R&D projects also here in Canada. So not only grow IP in Europe, but also on the other hand, have a strong IP based in Canada. Next slide, please. So what was the challenge for them? The biggest one was to run the company on a daily basis, because as it was mentioned already today, it was very important really to be here. And it's not just a slogan. You have to be here, you have to answer your call, you have to, or not have to, you should have the business office here and be able to meet people on a daily basis and time schedule. So this is how you build here the trust. So this is what we are doing also with them and for them, that we are running, especially at the beginning when they face the legal challenges with visas. We support them being here on the market every day, day by day. The second challenge for them, of course, was the money part, means to access for the public financial sources that are available here in Canada. If you want to be a part of it and run the R&D project, you have to, of course, be established here. And it's also a huge topic to talk about the shareholders, whether they should be Canadian or European, and how to face with that. Unfortunately, we do not have a time to do it today, but whoever has the question, you're very welcome to contact us later on, or we will try to answer all the questions. And the next slide, please. Okay, and the second company was founded in 2018 in Poland also. And this is the wide energy clean tech sector. The size is very similar. And they also were already succeeded in Poland. They've got a seed capital, and they've successful round about 1.3 million in grants. So they were quite a stable company already in Europe. Next slide, please.
Agnieszka, sorry to interrupt you. We have one more minute to close the webinar.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so just shortly, they founded, they've been incorporated here in Canada in 2022 in Prince Edward Island. They've got just 3 employees, but what was the challenge? The challenge was the visas program also. They couldn't be here for all the time. Even they've successfully finished the R&D project running here in Canada, they could not then sign any agreement because of the distance and absence here in the continent. So next slide, please. It's just a short. We can skip this one and go to the other one. Okay, so the lessons learned. Truly think global, okay, but act local. And it was not mentioned only by me, but also by the other speakers. You have to be here if you want to run the business here. And this is what WWS is doing on the daily basis, that we registered company, we are in the board on that companies, and we, for the first 2 years, help them and support them doing all the daily working here in the place where they want to. We operate, as I've mentioned, in Manitoba and in Alberta mainly, but we also have the connection in Toronto and in Vancouver.
Agnieszka, I will just say goodbye. I will leave you to Lace, my colleague from Clean. I will open the other webinar right now, but you will stay here. Lace will share some information relevant to this webinar. Thank you so much, all of you.
Okay, thank you, Carolina.
Thank you.
Okay, so if I just may ask for last one slide. Yeah. So this is what we are doing and what we are recommended to do as a step-by-step work if you want to enter the market. First, of course, is to check whether your product suits the Canadian market. Then entry preparation means to build a really strong strategy, decide which provinces are best for you. And then step 3 is the pre-registration, means to decide about the collaboration you can build when you are already registered. Means you can also have a lot of mission, expo trade to establish the first contact, but then to run the business, you have to register and be here. So this is the step 4, that you are incorporated, you've got a legal setup, and you can operate on the market. It depends on you whether you want to operate just in the province or you can also operate globally in Canada. So the last step is phase 5, and the last one is daily basis operation. So traveler, hiring, taxes, and to do that, it would be good to have the support from Canadian experts. So and the last one, please. Here you've got the contact to us. We operate in Canada and in Poland. Kasia is already with us also, that operates in Poland. So whenever you've got a question or any, just a question, or want to open your company to that market, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I'll take the lead here and let you go free to the next one. And I'd just like to remind everybody that this presentation will be shared tomorrow together with the recording of this meeting. So in case you want to know more details about it, and also include the contacts of the people who presented here today. So just last presentation, I will be very quickly. So you can also join the US one. And it's here. Please stay tuned for our next one that is going to be focused on the South Baltic region. So you can learn more opportunities about how to invest in Denmark, Sweden, Lithuania, Poland, and Germany. So if you just scan the QR code, you can go straight to our LinkedIn page and have more information about this. about the project. And we also welcome you to join the ICN Solutions platform, where we'll be posting different opportunities for you to go international. And also soon we'll also upload all the tools and materials from these webinars into this into a project space inside the platform, so you can have access to everything there. And there you can have contacts with different companies globally from the International Clean Tech Network. I'll also share my contacts. Here you can see who is responsible from each country in the South Baltic region, so who are the partners from the project. So please in touch with them. If you're a company based in one of those countries, we're more than glad to help you and support you for the next steps in your internationalization journey. That's it for today, and thank you so much. I would like to say thank you to everybody who participated and did the presentations. I'll share now in the chat the link for the other webinar, for the US one, so you can also join straight from here. And if you're not, if you're done for today, thank you so much and have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.